Solo Pro Radio Network at www.soloproradio.com. And today we are going to talk with a fabulous artist, Ruth Greenberg. But before we get to our interview today, I'd like to have a bit of time to tell you about me and Better, Smarter, Richer. I'm a business coach and the author of Better, Smarter, Richer, which is a book that is a fill-in-the-blanks workbook. And it's designed to help solos, creatives, entrepreneurs, all of you who are in one-person businesses, be more financially successful. And of course, you do that by doing the exercises in the workbook and by participating in some of our study groups where you get to work with a cohort and share your insights, your aha moments, your challenges that come from changing your thinking about what it takes to be a successful solopreneur. Solos are not like traditional businesses, and therefore the traditional business advice you find in most business books is really not going to help you get the financial success you're looking for. And I'm really pleased to announce that my new online class, Better, Smarter, Richer Study Group Online, has just gone live. And you can find that at www.opensesame.com. So I hope you'll go to my website, Better, Smarter, Richer. You can download a free ebook. You can join our newsletter or join the conversation on the blog and participate with all the solos who are following the 7 principles and building financial success in your careers. So as I said before, we're going to talk with Ruth Greenberg today, and she is a fabulous mosaics artist. Since 1995, Ruth and her team of artisans have been creating mosaics for clients nationwide. Ruth studied with many known ceramics artists and built a strong technical foundation, which she has complemented with her keen artistic sense and her passion for innovation. In her work with clays, formulas for glazing and firing, Ruth has again and again pushed the boundaries of conventional ceramics to develop the aesthetic for which she is known and admired. Hello, Ruth.
Hi, Jackie.
I'm thrilled you're with us today.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
It's just terrific. So, Ruth, talk to us about your background. Where'd you grow up? When did you first know you wanted to make a career as an artist, and even more specifically in ceramics art?
Well, I grew up in Connecticut, in a little town, Guilford, and I grew up in a very creative family, actually. But I have to be honest, I never really considered myself an artist. My sister was the artist. And I sometimes think families can only there's only room for one artist. And it didn't really occur to me, actually, until I was in college that I wanted to do art. And I say this, but I will confess that, in high school I did take art classes. And I remember my friend and I actually drawing our ideal studios, while we were supposed to be paying attention to math class. And so on some level, I was present with the potential of being an artist, but consciously I really wasn't. And I was pursuing a different major in college and everything. But on a whim, I took a pottery class, and I really felt like I'd come home. And I changed my major after the second class, and really began a different path that I have really kind of never swayed from. So that was 1986, I think. And and I was so fortunate to actually be at a college where I had one of the most incredible ceramics teachers in the country at the time. And, that was really just good fortune. So I
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that it just kind of reached out and grabbed you and just said, hey, come this way. And that you recognized it so quickly,
Yeah, it was, the draw of clay can be very powerful. I hear this from other people too.
Yeah, that must be, there must be, I think there must be something, just kind of even sensual about getting your fingers into that clay and, molding it the way that you want and, seeing different things take shape out of a, kind of a lump of nothing. And yes. All of a sudden something beautiful begins to appear,
Absolutely.
That must be just a fabulous feeling.
It really is.
Yeah, I would think it would be. So talk to us about your path from loving art and ceramics to opening your own studio.
Well, I had the intuition when I finished school that it was going to take me some time to kind of mature artistically. And so I actually took other kind of paths and did some traveling and, took some random jobs. And I actually went back to school for graduate school in teaching. And when I first moved to Portland in 1992, I opened a children's art school, which ended out really being a charmed endeavor. It was really fun. I mean, it was kind of miraculous. I was 24. I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I knew how to teach art. I knew I was an artist, and that part of it I really knew, but I knew nothing about running a business. But, and in the end, that was the thing that sort of bit me. But really, the endeavor was wonderful, and I met a lot of people. And through that school and the people I met, I actually ended up getting my first mosaic commission. Because prior to that time, I saw myself as sort of a ceramic sculptor. And once, I sort of got involved in mosaic, I really loved it. And the method that I use, I developed at that time because I had been teaching the kids to do, broken tile mosaic. But I kind of couldn't do that anymore. And being a ceramic artist, I thought I can figure out how to do mosaic in a different way. So I did, and I just loved it. I loved it, and that's been my primary medium now for about 18 years. So I still do ceramic sculpture. I do all kinds of everything clay, basically, but mosaic really began at that time. And I got a couple of commissions, which led to a few more commissions, And as my business grew, I had to hire help and create a team, which is where I am now.
Yeah, wow. So can you tell us a little bit about how you figured out how to do mosaic differently?
Well, I really, it's a funny thing. I feel like so much of that time of my life just happened serendipitously without me really realizing what I was doing. But for instance, in college, I there was a visiting artist who I just really liked, and she was a mosaic artist, and I got a grant to work with her one summer, not because I was that interested in mosaic, but because I really liked her, and I wanted to be around other artists who were out in the world working. And so I had this background in broken tile mosaic, and she is an amazing, Beverly McGinnis, she's an amazing mosaic artist. And so I was working with the kids, at my hands-on art center, children's art school, doing this mosaic, and I would occasionally integrate it into my work personally, but it wasn't really my passion. And so when one of the kids, it was actually a friend of one of the kids who was at my school, parents were opening this new location for their business, and they wanted me to do a mural, I thought, oh, that sounds great, but I just can't break another tile. I can't do that. I'm gonna, so, what I did was just figure out how to make my own tile, and it kind of helped me to develop what I'm doing now, which is, I always describe as drawing in clay, because we're working with wet clay. I start with, just a slab of clay and draw my imagery and cut it out and glaze it and fire it. Then, kind of put it together. So I just, a little bit of trial and error, really. And it, honestly, my naivete was kind of a benefit at the time, because I didn't realize what a big endeavor I was taking on, doing this huge mural when I'd never done this technique before. But I was very fortunate. It worked out really well, and I learned a lot. And it's still one of my favorite pieces, actually, that first one.
That's wonderful, and I really appreciate your articulating that way, because if somebody looks at your website and some of the jobs that you have done, you've got these wonderful pieces that you do, but it's not, a square tile with a picture drawn on it or glazed on it. It's the actual shape, of a leaf or a flower or a bird or whatever, where you've cut it out. And I think that's what you're talking about when you say draw in clay. And
yes,
that makes a lot of sense to me. And until you have talked about that, I guess the light hadn't gone on that how different that is. I know it looked different, but I hadn't realized what a tremendous innovation that must have been for you to do that. And it's one of those things, as you say, that, we don't know what we're doing, so we do things that are impossible.
Right. I think all people who open their businesses are doing that.
Yeah. There's the older craftspeople in just about anything that you do that say, oh, that can't be done, and what you have to do if you're talking like that is get out of the way of the people who are doing it.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct, actually. And this was a method that I'm sure other people in the world were doing, but I had never seen it, and I only knew what I wanted to make. And I've seen more people, do that kind of work since then, especially in the last 5 years. There's been a real burgeoning of mosaic and mosaic innovation, actually. But at the time, I had never seen anything like it. I'd only really seen the, Ravenna, ancient sort of style of mosaic, which is actually many different kinds. But, or else, like Antonio Gaudi, which is all broken tile and beautiful, just different than kind of the aesthetic I wanted to create.
That's fabulous, because it certainly distinguishes you from other artists. And it's fabulously beautiful. So, yeah, how do you keep your inspiration and creativity, focused and alive and engaged in your work? What inspires you today?
Well, I feel like when it comes down to it, most of my work is about the magnificence of life on some level. I'm a person who walks around just enamored with the natural world. I make sure that every day I'm outside for a good portion of time. I love to walk, and this love of life kind of, bubbles in me. And my best way to share that and to offer that is through these things that I make. And so the natural world is a big part of it. The beauty in life, the beauty in people really inspires me a lot. The kind of people who do courageous and kind things even when nobody will ever thank them for it or will ever see it, or and
that's not what they're doing it for. They don't care if something.
Yeah, they're doing it from something really inside them. And this, these various things that inspire me, I make sure that I am putting myself in situations where I feel that frequently. And in the context of my work, I do look at a lot of other artists' work, which really is very inspirational for me. And somebody who works for me, Robert Streff, is somebody who I collaborate with a lot. And we talk a lot about other artists and work, and kind of, talking about what works and what doesn't work and what inspires us. And so that's another thing that helps. And something else that's really helped me, Jackie, is actually your encouragement and your insistence on keeping my focus on my creativity. So I make sure that it's alive every single day, and that I don't let the wheels of the business, because I have a business there's 6 of us here, and that's very tiny, but it's still a wheel that turns and can just kind of eat up all my time and energy if I'm not careful. So you always remind me to keep my focus on. I'm very, very grateful for that. It's one of the greatest gifts that you could give for me personally. But so yeah, that has those things are kind of important for me.
I love that, and that's a very high compliment. And I seeing the art that you create, to know that I even have a small part in the having that come out the way that it does is very thrilling for me. And I guess I do feel that role of insisting that you focus on your creativity.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Get back over there and be creative.
Yeah, it's very enticing, I think, when you are involved with a team. There's people's questions, and all kinds of squeaky wheels are pulling all the time, and it can really be magnetic.
Yes.
And it takes a real effort, and dividing up my time and being really clear with myself about what I'm doing.
Yes, it does. And actually I think it's the creative and artistic mindset that struggles with it more than anybody. I don't know if I told you, but a friend of mine has this little plaque up in her house, and there's a picture of this cute little girl, in her pink and all of this, and she's got a little gold crown on her head, and what she is saying, the words underneath it, she says, I was on my way to conquer the world, and I got distracted by this pretty bright, shiny thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's so wonderful. I think something else also that prevents me from getting too distracted for too long to that bright, shiny thing is I have a lot of people around me who are, particularly I would say I have, my father, who's really just such an incredibly inspiring person to me. And I have the excellence that he holds up this model of achievement and of excellence within himself creatively as well as in the world. And it does help me to keep focused. And, having people around me that are ambitious and have mastery in what they're doing really also helps me to remember that that's so important to me, because really that is so important to me. Developing that mastery has always been something that has driven me.
Hi there.
Hi.
Okay, are we back together?
Yes, I think so. Barbara, you there?
I'm there.
Okay, so you were saying great things about your father.
Yeah, I was just saying that he's inspiring to me, and that he helps remind me of something that I value so much, which is developing my own mastery, and that has helped keep my ambition alive over the years.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a wonderful, model to have in your life, somebody that's worked on their own mastery and therefore inspires you to do the same. Because it's easy to get distracted, and it's also easy to kind of get tired.
I agree. It really is.
This is hard work, and it's also hard work to be a innovator and a pioneer, always seeing what lies beyond the next horizon and saying, let's go, let's try this, and sometimes you think, oh my goodness, couldn't I just sit here and, veg for a minute?
Yeah, I definitely do have those feelings. But what happens is that, I'm sort of one of those accidental pioneers, because it's never for its own sake. It's only because I think, I want to do this thing. How can I do it? I've got to figure it out. Okay, and that desire kind of the thing I'm trying to do kind of pulls me along.
Oh, isn't that grand? This is grand. So what do you like most about being in business for yourself?
I like almost everything about it. I think what I love most is being able to create my own community and my own environment and my own sort of world here that actually I can thrive in.
Mm-hmm.
And to create a world that enables my team to thrive as well. So together, we're all doing our best work. And
that's fabulous.
And I really just love working for myself. I mean, the only things that have ever been difficult over the years are financial strategies and just worrying about the financial aspect of things has been difficult over the years. But really everything else, I'm always one of those people who feels like there's no grunt work here. I just love it all. All of it feels like it's for a higher purpose, and that has always made it possible to clean the floors and make the cold calls and do all the things that are challenging. And there have been times over the years that I think about, some of the PR work I've done within, to try to get myself out there. I remember sitting terrified, knowing I had to make this phone call because I'd seen these photographs of this designer's work and knew that I would really like to work with this designer, and I want to call this designer, and being terrified, just terrified. Yeah. But the desire to actually work with the designer and to get my work out there is just kind of stronger.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing to know your driver and let it do that. Let it drive you, because that desire to work with that person probably also got you to pick up the 800-pound phone, as it's called, and actually make the call. And most times when we do that, I don't know if it was your experience, but most times when we actually do that, we find that the other person is charming, thrilled that we called, delighted to work with us, has 7 new ideas of what we could do to, work together and collaborate. And, and you think, what was so bad about making this phone call?
That is absolutely true. And that has absolutely been my own experience as well. It is really, people are, when you're clear and you don't waste their time and you say what you want, and they can tell that you're tentative, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You be yourself. Like, that's the other thing, one of the things that was always held me back is I thought I had to be this super confident person, or I had to, be more accomplished, or whatever it was. But actually just being who I am, where I'm at, has really always been the right answer.
Absolutely.
But you're right. People usually are very welcoming and kind and easy to talk with. And
yes.
Yeah.
Most of us love to talk about what we do. And, when you think about calling another artist because you'd like to collaborate with them, they're probably just thrilled that somebody noticed what they did.
Yes.
And in your case, you are so aware and educated about your art that you not only noticed the fine details, and have a pretty good idea of how they achieved something. In other words, the fine brush strokes and, what it really took to, say, get that glaze or that color or that shape, to work. And so they're thrilled to talk to, a knowledgeable person.
Thank you.
Yeah, we make up the stuff. So, Ruth, how do you find your clients?
Well, it's been largely a word of mouth kinds of situation. And, I told you I did grow up in a creative family, and we had a lot of other architects. My father's an architect, and we had a lot of other architects and creative people at our dinner table when I was a child. And so I have a lot of sort of family friends who were contacts over the years, and that led to more and more contacts. So I have I do a lot of work on the East Coast as a consequence. But I have made efforts over the years and done some real, doing some traveling to make these meet with these designers who I want to work with, and that I was discussing earlier about making the cold calls to them. So I've taken, over the years, every couple of years, I take some trips and I meet with a lot of people to let them know I'm out there. And I used to do things like send out postcards to keep myself in people's minds, and anything I can think of. I worked very hard to try to get myself in articles. In publications. That is a great way to get publicity, and that definitely helped get my name out there. And for me, I found that actually getting my name out there enough, all of a sudden it has a life of its own. And then, people who are 5, 6, and 7 separations away from you all of a sudden are hearing about you. And so people were starting to call me who I'd never heard of, and I never even heard of the person who recommended me. So that made a big difference. And at this point, I actually still do much of the same things. I still seek out people I want to work with. I still, try to meet with them. And, I'm at this point also trying to get some of my artwork in galleries and doing public art, which is a little bit of a different way of marketing yourself than kind of in the interiors world.
Right.
So... Yeah, I pretty much do anything that occurs to me. Anything that anybody suggests, anything that occurs to me, I try it. And the things that are not me, I find myself never doing. So I just do the things that make sense to me and that I can do as much as possible.
Right. That's, the things that reflect who you are. And, certainly it's working. So do you competitively propose on projects, or do clients just come to you exclusively because of your reputation?
Well, for public art projects, I do competitively propose. And also I have a collection, a line of tile with Ann Sachs Tile and Stone, which is a high-end national tile company, actually international at this point. And there I'm often, you could say that that's competitively proposing, because my tile, I have 9 designs with them, and that's competing with many other vendors. So, but in all my commission work, the client has either come to me or learned about me. So we're just trying to figure out what to make for them and, the kind of budget they have and such.
Oh, good. So that's a wonderful spot to be in.
Yes, it is. I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah. Where they come to you and know that they want you, and then it's just a matter of figuring out what you're going to do together. Right. That's a great space to be. That's wonderful. So what is it that distinguishes your work from that of other mosaic or ceramic artists?
Well, I think my aesthetic is really the most important thing, because at this point there are techniques and there are innovations that I've pioneered, like my firebox tile, for instance. I created a tile that actually is fireproof and you can put in the interior of your fireplace. I mean, that's an exception where that's actually something technical. But even with that, it's really the aesthetic that sells it. And I think people really do, either they resonate with the aesthetic or they move on to something that they do resonate with. And, something else that I like to think has something to do with what distinguishes my work is that I actually, sort of have been running parallel paths for years, and I've always had a real interest in energy work. And for the last 20 years, I've, been involved in one way or another in some kind of energy work. And in the last 10 years, it's been in core shamanism and Reiki and developing energy skills. And it's something that I have always been passionate about. I've had this it's drawn me from just as much as art. And I kind of brought those things together in the last 5 years. And so in my studio, we actually do energy work while we're creating the work. And I like to think that energy that's in the piece has something to do with what people feel when they look at it and why they might choose my work, because that work is actually holding, a high vibration and a healing energy and a energy of love and light.
I'm sure that that's absolutely true. I have no doubt about that. Tapping into that, the force, that universal energy is a fabulous thing to do. And I'm sure it's also part of your inspiration and, part of your design of pieces that you're going to do, and part of your inspiration when you are working with a commission client and you say, oh, I know what we should do here. And that it all comes across, and that when people have your pieces in their home, that they can feel the love and the care that went into it, the intentionality that went into it, and they just feel comfortable around it. I'm sure that happens.
Jackie, we've lost Ruth.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Okay. So should we hang up and?
I'm sorry. I'm going to try and get her back here. There she is.
Yeah. Is Jackie here?
Mm-hmm.
It's me. It's Barbara.
Great.
That was Barbara and me. So we were talking about the how you put the energy into your work, and I have no doubt that your clients are able to feel that. That they may not know directly that it is coming from your intentional energy that you put into the work, but that they feel very comfortable around it, or warm around it, or that they can feel that that love and intentionality coming in. I've got something in my corner over here, and it's wonderful to be here, and my dog hangs out there, my cat hangs out there, I've moved my reading chair there, and it's my favorite place in the house. And
right.
Yeah, and here's Ruth's piece, that she did for me. Of course,
Well, I always think about, when you walk into the art museum or the natural history museum, and you go to the Native American area, and you just are hit with this feeling of the power of the work, and something we've all felt. Some work really holds a lot of power. Now, of course, that's ceremonial art, and what I'm making is not ceremonial. It's a little bit more accessible than that. And I actually really believe that all artists and actually all people, when they really love what they're doing, they're kind of tapping into that energy and infusing and viewing what they're doing actually with that energy. But I just added a little bit more intention to it so that we're very purposely imbuing the work with the highest good energy so that the people who are experiencing it are actually receiving most of what they need, what brings their highest good.
And you know, they feel it. So, I've obviously been to your studio, and it's full of kilns and patterns and manufacturing tools and a good energy vibe. And so, do you always make the tile or mosaic pieces for your projects, or do you outsource them sometimes?
There were times where we had, for our Anne Sachs perennial collection, we had actually outsourced a little bit. We just continued doing that, and so. But over the years with my artwork, I've always made all of my own tiles. And I feel like actually my work depends on that. It really does. There's a way that we go about within the process, actually, cutting the clay, that is really integral to the effect that's there at the end. So we always do it ourselves.
Yes. That's I would think that's kind of unusual, isn't it? Or is that usual in your particular area of art?
Well, here's the thing is, I feel like a lot of the production work that I've done in the past, like for instance, my collection with Anne Sachs is a little bit more in the production realm. Like the other vendors at Anne Sachs some of them are artists, but many of them are factories. And so when I'm competing in that realm, that's often the case.
Yeah.
But when I'm an artist and I'm selling a one-of-a-kind piece, I think it's other mosaic artists have so many different ways of doing things. Sometimes they make their own tiles, sometimes they might use mixed media, they might actually outsource some of the making of it. I feel like a lot of factories at this point are outsourcing to other parts of the world, and it's very hard to make it in the production industry unless you do. But I think as artists, there's so many different ways people do things. And if it makes sense for them to outsource, they do. I've just found that with what I'm doing, I can't create the aesthetic I want if I'm actually outsourcing. So it doesn't serve at all.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand very well what you're talking about. So your goal is to continue on doing that with your small, as you call it, staff of craft artisans. And, you'll keep working that way. So, and isn't mosaics, that seems to me to be a very old art form, so are there lots of new tools and materials and techniques arising other than your own?
Yeah, there are actually. It is ancient. It's ceramics in general is one of the only records we have of, ancient times, and because they survive, they last over the years. And yes, mosaics, you've seen old stone mosaics and old glass and old natural material mosaics of all kinds. And at this point, contemporary mosaic work often refers to ancient work, but it is very innovative. People are using ceramics, they're using stone. There's water jet techniques. There's, I feel like one of the most amazing technologies out there right now that's going to shift so many things is the 3D printer. And if you're a person who's reproducing things at all, for instance, tile, you can make all your prototypes with a 3D printer, and that just is kind of unbelievable.
It is, isn't it?
It really, really is. And it's not really a path I'm pursuing, unless, of course, some project comes up that requires that, then I would. But I'm not interested in reproducing things over and over again in general, so... But yeah, there are a lot of really amazing technologies out there all the time. I don't even know about most of them. I sometimes read about what different companies are doing, and I think, wow, that it's really incredible, the budgets to come up with these new methods and the, vast human, the amount of labor, the workforce that they have to put into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. I'm trying to wrap my brain around those 3D printers all the time.
I know.
And how in the world they do it, and produce something off of a printer, and I've got my mindset, it's flat and it's long, and it's got ink on one side, and maybe we've got colored ink. I'm still, being excited that we can do things in colored ink. And here they're doing, 3D models. And I know I read something about the people who are doing physical organ transplants and human physiology work, that they're thinking, oh look, we can use a 3D printer to do, to lay out the stem cells and get them growing nicely in a certain pattern. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I can't grasp that thought.
Yeah, I know. And nanotechnology too. It's just sort of beyond quantum technology. It's just beyond what the brain can grasp.
So Ruth, in the past, we've heard you've got the Ansax perennial line that you've done, and you've had a lot of commissioned projects over the years, which have come to you as you have let people know and been willing to step forward as the fabulous artist that you are, and shown out there in the just shining in the universe. Are you thinking about creating any proprietary products for yourself? Have you thought about doing that as a way to market?
Well, I'll tell you the things that I'm cooking up in my studio these days. I have several things that I'm excited about. I have something that I would call more of a product is I've been starting to make some doorway mandalas.
Oh.
And I was really inspired by the doorway mandalas in Tibet. And, they have these beautiful little, very simple, actually, ceramic kind of, like big tiles almost that are embedded in their doorway. And every morning they come out and they clean them and they, put flowers on them to welcome in the energies of good fortune. And it's, benevolent energies. And I find them beautiful, and I love the whole concept. And
I love that concept.
So I have been working on making some doorway mandalas. And I'm making them so that they can be, very small or a little bit larger. They can be hung on your door. They could be something you step on. They could be something more like a doormat, or they could hang next to your door. In our sort of Western world, we don't necessarily embed everything into the concrete that's in the front of our building or our houses very readily. So I think it's a little more workable for us to actually, a little more practical for us to actually have something we can hang over our door or on our door. So, and these are different sizes, different colors, different patterns, and honestly they are looking more one of a kind as little art pieces than anything else. So I'd hardly call it a product, but that falls more in that category. And also sort of outdoor or indoor altars that are actually integrated into a part of your decor. They're actually sort of beautiful decor, but they are also, you can, when I call it an altar, I don't mean anything religious. I just mean sort of honoring and paying homage to something you appreciate. So it can be in your kitchen, and you can, have your appreciation for the food you're creating and for your own creativity that you're adding to the food, and have things on this little altar that are about that. So, and then I'm also making a lot of art pieces actually that can hang on the wall. Some of them are mosaics, some of them are a little bit more painterly, and I'm also doing some collaborative work with the gentleman I mentioned earlier, Rob Streff. We're doing some collaborative pieces that are, some of them are large, some of them are small. I have a large mural I'm working on here in the studio, which I envision being in a gallery. So a lot of the work I'm doing right now I sort of envision either as large-scale outdoor work, either for public art or in a hospital or in a place where there's more outside of a person's home. But some of the pieces also I feel like will be in residential contexts as well.
I think this is just fabulous, and that it's going to be wonderful to for you to be doing work that comes forward from your own artistic spirit, rather than, which all your work has, but
sure.
When you're working on a commission for somebody, you're negotiating with them to some degree about what they want, what they envision, what you envision, and working back and forth. But it sounds like all of these things that you're talking about are really coming from your own inspiration and your own artistic spirit, and you're coming forward with them, and put them in galleries, have a body of work, come forward with it, and have people get to know Ruth, the artist here, not just Ruth that does commissions for other people. I don't know if I'm expressing that
Sure,
well.
yeah, no, I think you are. I mean, I think that there's the kind of thing that you see it already made, and you choose it, or else you develop something with the artist. And, you know, the commission work is, both of these things are loves of mine. I love doing commission work, you know, that's inspired by whatever I'm inspired by what the context is and what the buyer, you know, the client would like, and, you know, the chemistry between us and kind of what we can create together can be so fun. And it's something I've been doing for years and years and love. And I also am having hunger lately to make things, as you say, that are that I would complete, and somebody can simply see it already finished and choose it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's different. You know, that's you know, it's coming from your artistic spirit, and, you know, tempered by all of the learning and all of the skills that you have gathered over your career, and, you know, coming out that way and saying, ta-da, you know, this is where I am, rather than, as I say, a commission from somebody is wonderful, but, you know, part of it's always a negotiation, you know, whether you like it or not, and the more you are strong in your own artistic mastery and, you know, your own skill set, you probably negotiate less with other people about what you'll do, but it's still a negotiation. You know, it's like paying the bill.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true, and I think collaborative work in any way is that way.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I love doing public art, is actually because it really values what the artist is bringing.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You've just completed that wonderful public art. It's called The Noble Architect, right?
Yeah. It's on.
It's just lovely. Actually, I had a lunch with a friend last week, and I took her down to show it to her, and we both stood there and rubbed you know, the surface of your art piece. So talk about that. Our listeners don't know about it. So why don't you talk about it and describe it?
Sure. This is it was a sculpture. It is a sculpture here in Portland on Alberta Street, where on the corner of 18th and Alberta on the bus platform, and it was a part of the Alberta Streetscape project. And I'm working with the Regional Arts and Culture Council, and also I collaborated with the sculptor David Lobenthal, and he made the sculpture. We both kind of came up with the concept, and he made the sculpture, and I made the tile. And basically, it's called The Noble Architect, and it's a sculpture of a beaver. And here in Oregon, imagery of beavers are plentiful, but they tend to be mascot oriented or kind of comical, lovable but cute, you know. And what we really wanted to do was to think about what animals would have been here, you know, really what would have been here if humans weren't, so many of us weren't living here. And what we discovered is that beavers were everywhere, especially in this area. They were just everywhere. And the more we learned about it, as we were already even working on the project, we continued to learn about the importance of the beaver historically as well as in our future. I mean, the wealth of this state was basically built on the back of the beaver. And our future depends on the beaver, because they are responsible for restoring our wetlands and our waterways. So this is an animal that deserves some homage and some dignity. Yes. And we wanted to create an image that was accessible and really lovable, but also had some real dignity and beauty to it. So that's what this is, and it's The Noble Architect, and I think the subtext says facilitator of rich ecology, builder of the future, benefactor of the past. And that was such a fun project to do. And yes, I did the mosaic surface on it, and it was just so fun. It's a very rich beaver, and when you see it from a distance, the surface looks, you know, brownish, but when you get up close, the colors, there's a lot of really beautiful colors in it, and the shapes of the fur are really lovely. So yeah, that was a really fun piece, and it actually has it's wet my whistle for public art. I just love making art and seeing with the beaver. It's been incredible how many people have taken pictures of themselves next to it and sent them to me, and, you know, seeing kids' reactions when we were working on it, how many, all the people that walked by and seeing, how their children reacted and how they talked to their children about it. And it was really a rich experience for me. So I'm definitely pursuing that avenue a lot more.
I think that will be wonderful. And I just want to tell our listeners, when she talks about the fur on the beaver, that, there are all these little mosaic pieces that are from, maybe half an inch long and a quarter, an eighth of an inch wide. I mean, tiny little pieces up to bigger pieces, and there are yellows and oranges and browns, and a couple places there's even blues in the glazes that you did. It looks like, each and every single piece had to be been cut and done and glazed separately, and then put on that sculpture to give it the look of this rich, deep fur. And as I say, the lady that I took over there, was rubbing her hands on it, saying, "Oh, this is so beautiful. I just love it." And I'm sure that that's what, other people must be doing. It's a lovely, lovely piece. And I think the name, The Noble Architect, is, stops. It makes you think, and think about what the beaver did in, our land, and certainly in Oregon. As you say, they were here and created the wetlands for us. And, you have to think about that. It shaped the earth.
Yeah.
And, we kind of tend to think it was bulldozers.
Right. You're right.
So Ruth, we've talked a lot about where your career is now and kind of where you're going. Do you think that you're headed more in that direction of doing work of your own pieces and towards galleries and then towards public arts? Is that where you're
Absolutely.
You see yourself going over the next 3 or 4 years?
Absolutely. I'm in a real fertile creative time right now, and I'm making things that I'll have to find a context for. And at this point, it really seems like the contexts are in the public and galleries and people simply buying things that they've already seen that I've made. And I'm fairly certain I will still be doing commission work, because it's also a really rich experience for me to do commission work, and I love that as well. I mean, I did a project last year that was one of the most enjoyable projects I've done in a long time. In fact, the two most enjoyable projects I've done in a long time were The Noble Architect and this other project, which was sculptures for a client on the East Coast. And we made 57 sort of abstract cylindrical sculptures for their yard, and it was just so fun. So, I collaborated with the designer on the project, Jacques Grange, and it was a joy to collaborate in that kind of context. So I do know that commission work will still be alive, but I am broadening this other realm of what I'm doing. You're absolutely right. More of the more artwork, in short, really. Less ornament. A lot of what I've done over the years has been ornament, and I love design. I love design. So that's always going to be a part of what I'm doing. But I think I'm discontinuing competing in the production realm is part of it.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's really time for this wonderful art to come forth, as you envision it. So if we have any young artists listening to us today, do you have a single piece of advice that you'd like to impart to them?
Well, let's see. I think I maybe have two little tidbits. One is to attend to your inner world, because when you attend to your inner world, you develop an inner compass, and then you really have something to offer, something of integrity to offer to the world, and you don't get confused about what you think you're supposed to do. You do what really is the best thing to do. And I would also say, especially for artists, don't take yourself too seriously, and don't require that others take you too seriously. I think we all get these messages as artists that we have to take ourselves really seriously, and I actually think it's important not to.
I always love that phrase, don't take yourself too seriously, you'll never get out of it alive.
I haven't heard that. That's a good one.
And you think, that's true.
Yeah, it is true. It's really true.
So we're ending up here, and it's been a delightful interview, but how can our listeners find you?
They can find me, and first of all, I just want to welcome people to contact me. I always welcome contact from anybody who wants to learn, anybody who wants to see what we're doing, whatever it is. Any reason is a great reason. And my website is rfgh.com. ruthgtile.com. You could also just Google my name, Ruth Frances Greenberg. Francis is with an ES and Greenberg is ERG. And you can, see various things that I've done. And you can see my Ansax perennial line. If you Google Ansax perennial, it'll bring you right to my designs there.
Oh, that's fabulous. Well, Ruth, I want to thank you very much for a great discussion today. And listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in to Solo Pro Radio. We are the voice of solopreneurship, and this is a growing way to be in business, as you know. And this is your host, Jackie B. Peterson, the author of Better, Smarter, Richer, 7 Business Principles for Solo and Creative Entrepreneurs. And I hope if we piqued your interest, you will go to my Better, Smarter, Richer website and check out the free ebook that talks about the 7 principles, and join our blog and download the newsletter.